Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and this evening's show is about SeaSide sustainability. And our guests this evening are Eric Major, the Executive Director of SeaSide Sustainability, and Ken Hecht, the board member, or one of the board members, yeah. And so, what is SeaSide Sustainability?
So SeaSide Sustainability is a organization, nonprofit organization. We're out of Cape Ann, although we do a lot of work in a lot of different places. We're about to go national this fall. And we concentrate on sustainable oceans and education, and essentially how those two are connected and interconnected in many ways. So a lot of, well, because we're all oceanside communities right here, yeah. We do a lot of work with marine debris and well, of course, education. Yeah.
So how long has this operation been going on, Ken?
This has been knocking on 3 years, Eric, I think?
Well, we started in 2016, although we were doing just Adventure Ed then. So we're really in
what do you mean, Adventure Ed?
So getting kids into the oceans and into the backcountry to learn about sustainability and fun and providing experiences so they could enjoy the flora and fauna and give them a reason for why they need to get out there and protect this and care about it. So I think a lot of kids are on their phones so much that we need to give them a purpose. So really all of this has started in May of 2017.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a very broad menu of things that Eric and his roughly 50 interns work on and work hard. And so it's a very broad spectrum, of the things that are being accomplished now.
Do you go into the schools yet and make presentations there?
We do often. I mean, I work with schools, so I was a teacher for 20 years almost, and so go into schools a lot and do presentations. Work with a lot of schools locally and regionally on consulting with them on going green, on sustainability, making green behaviors. So yeah, we work with a lot of local schools. We're working with schools in Beverly as well.
Yeah. Well, you brought a couple of videos with you, and one of them is showing scooping this stuff up. Tim, could you run that first video, please?
Yeah, so this is one of the things we do in one of our programs called Marine Citizen Science, and so we are that's a boat out of Gloucester, Mass. And we determined concentrations of marine debris, but specifically microplastics in our waters. And so what's being deployed off of this boat is it's called a marine debris trawl. And it goes for about 15 minutes, not about 15 minutes, it goes for 15 minutes in a straight line. And for about a knot to 3 knots. And then at the end of this, you are left with an 8-ounce sample. That's what one of our interns is doing right there. She's actually pouring that 8-ounce sample into this sample jar. And what's going to happen is that sample jar is then brought over to Endicott College, where we have a great relationship with them. And they process the sample into essentially, they actually processed 4 of our samples last year, and these are the microplastics that are in our water. So that actually sample right there is this one right here, and the one that they were just working on. Yeah. And so there are significant amounts of microplastics that are in our waters, unfortunately, which are very small guys.
This is not a problem. It's for the big ocean, way out kind of thing. It's a local.
It's not just a problem globally. It's a problem right here.
Yeah, because all we ever hear about is the huge gyre of plastic swirling around in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah.
I think we were talking before the show. It's either bigger than the state of Rhode Island or maybe the state of Texas.
Yeah, it is massive.
Yeah.
Well, the microplastics, what it does is it breaks down. The plastics do break down over time in the salt water, and then the crustaceans, the fish, ingest it whether they're wanting to or not. It's not necessarily that they're eating a straw, although many sea animals do eat this debris, but it's that it really goes into their body and is throughout their body. So thus, when we eat fish or crustaceans, we're getting that plastic in our bodies.
Yeah.
So literally, this ends up in our bodies. That's one of the key issues.
Sources of this that I've heard about, maybe you can elaborate for me, is a lot of our products have microplastics built into them as sort of like an abrasive, like toothpaste, and some of these face washes, body washes, kind of cosmetic things. And so we don't even need the ocean to break it down. It's made broken down, if you will, and then it's just dumped into the ocean anyway. So, yeah, there's a lot of this stuff around, and I guess there's got to be a change in the plan of how we reprocess plastics.
Yeah, I think microbeads are, if they haven't been banned, they're about to be banned nationally, and that's what those are. Those are the abrasives. Yes, they're bad, but and they should be banned, of course. But this stuff is coming from consumer plastics, and unfortunately fishing gear, and it just breaks down. So much of it is this polymer structure of based on oil, and so it's going to last for a long, long time. Just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But as all the debris in the ocean continues to break down, the concentrations are going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
that's
the
really
end product
problem.
is of all of this plastic when it hits the ocean is these little small pieces, the micro.
That's where it ends up, and then it
Yeah.
ends up in us and in our water. Yeah.
Well, you showed a video a few seconds ago of skimming the surface to find this stuff. Is it all surface oriented, or does the whole ocean, top to bottom, get evenly distributed with this stuff?
I guess it would probably be best described as like a plastic soup. Some is on the top, some is kind of sunk, and it's kind of in the in the water column, and some is sunk. I mean, really.
Normally you think of plastics being lighter than wood, kind of thing, and therefore they should be floating on the surface. And you had another video showed of this bucket thing.
Yeah.
Tim, could you run the bucket thing? You can use the technical term for it.
Yeah. So we're part of we're part of a partnership called the Cape Ann Maritime Partnership, and this is some footage of about a sea bin. These are actually two sea bins that we have. One of them is this is actually not our footage, but one of these sea bins is installed already. This is actually the skimmer. So we have two sea bins and a skimmer. The other sea bin is about to go in the water soon. This skimmer, it's called the MTS skimmer. That's also in Gloucester, at Maritime Gloucester. And both of those devices collectively, essentially what they are is they're fixed devices that go on the side of a dock. And so as the tide comes up, tide goes down, these move with them. And they are constantly sucking in, kind of imagine a bilge pump in a boat, but constantly sucking in water and then expelling it and capturing all of the floating marine debris. And there's a significant amount out there in our harbor, in Beverly Harbor.
How many of these things do you have dispersed around this area?
So thus far, we have the skimmer in Gloucester.
You got one skimmer?
One skimmer, two sea bins. And
yeah.
those sea bins, I was saying, are the only two sea bins in the eastern seaboard thus far. So we're testing them to see how they work. One of our partners is literally cleaning the sea bin 4 times a day. Bless her heart, really doing a lot of work out there. The place that we're going to put the other sea bin, which we'll be installing next week, is another place. It's kind of if you look in Beverly, it's a north channel, and a lot of marine debris and floating stuff comes right in there.
It sounds like you're gathering some data to say there's a problem, but are these the real solution? Can you put enough of these things out in the water to make a significant difference, or are you just recording the fact that, yeah, there's a problem?
I think that we're at the very beginning, and there's a lot more to be done. Imagine if you got your scuba gear on and went underwater in Gloucester Harbor, Beverly Harbor, in certain areas. It'd just be like, leaves blow to certain places. Wind blows snow to certain places.
Yeah.
So there's higher concentrations of subsurface trash in certain places. And those are the kinds of things that over time we'd like to understand. Where are those? How do we clean up the stuff that's already there, so we can get it out so it doesn't turn into microplastics? And how do we prevent it from going in? Through education and through these kinds of technologies, which are really improving over time. So, but I will say that the harbor masters and the people who work and use the oceans and our citizens are pretty excited about the cleanups that we're talking about.
So what sort of a time frame do you think working on? Is this a 5-year program, a 10-year program, or to get a better handle on it?
I don't know if it's going to end. I mean, I don't see this ever ending. I mean, I think, to continue what Ken was saying, we started a curriculum called Reclaiming the Sea from Marine Debris. And essentially it gets school groups, gives them resources so they can teach themselves about the issues of marine debris, but also we're going to have a field trip out in Gloucester to visit our Seabin and the skimmer. We're also getting working on a technology of procuring one from a company that is essentially, it's a Roomba for the ocean. We're kind of reviewing a couple, and actually our partner was Beverly Rotary, and we're in the process of doing that right now. One we were thinking about getting, but the price point was a little bit excessive. So, and then we also have an underwater drone. To Ken's point, what he was saying about scuba under there and see all the stuff. What we're going to have is kids can operate this underwater drone and see all of the mess that's under there, and they'll be real time come back right to their paddle and their screen and be able to see that. To your question about how long this is, I mean, I feel like this is it is such a conundrum. I mean, I think last year alone we produced globally more single-use plastics than steel, and we're set every year expected to make more and more and more single-use plastics. Single-use plastics being your water bottle, your straws, your cups and your cutlery and that kind of stuff. Things that are intended for grab once, use it, and huck it. Not, we're surrounded by plastics. Everywhere we look right here is plastics. I mean, we couldn't have this without, all of our, everything. But that's not the single-use plastics that we're talking about here. So
think about it as inflow and outflow. There's an inflow to our oceans of plastic, and it's a constant inflow. And so really the education component and the straw bans and the plastic bans and the plastic bag bans are meant to limit the supply that can go into our oceans. So it starts there. So let's stop putting stuff in our oceans, okay? And then there's this other part of it, which is cleaning up what we've already done in terms of damage. So I broadly speaking, I would say, let's stop the stuff from going in, and let's clean up what we've got. I mean, those are the two components, right? So, and the education part, and very proud of our communities that some of our communities here, Beverly's considering it, Gloucester's banned single-use plastic bags, styrofoam. These are things that we have to stop having the ability to go into our oceans, so we stop the supply.
Well, that's where I start to have a problem with this whole exercise, that plastics were invented nominally after 1900. First one was Bakelite. And they've been coming up with more and more different plastics ever since. And like you're showing here and here and here, there are some awful useful things. You look at your car, and just about everything in it is plastic. And in fact, I got into a discussion with some guys about flying on this new Boeing Dreamliner. And one of the features of it is they can fly it at a lower cabin altitude because they got a composite structure on it that allows them to fly at a higher pressure or a lower altitude, and you get a better oxygen content. So there's all sorts of good things that happen with plastics. And just to go out arbitrarily and ban them bothers me, because one of the bans that shows up is, we'll ban plastic bags. Okay, but the little plastic sleeve that your newspaper comes in, well, that's okay. Or the little plastic sleeve that you put your broccoli in or your asparagus in, that's okay, but you can't have a bag to carry it. And when we used to have the plastic bags over at Market Basket, that's where we shop, we'd take one of the plastic bags, put all the plastic bags we got in it, the little ones and the big ones, and take it back and dump it in their little bin at the front door. This isn't happening anymore. So in banning the plastic bags, we've got into a situation where, yeah, it may stop some of this stuff, but other stuff is still going on. And I think the message is, how do we convince people that, yeah, you got to take this stuff back to be reprocessed? I hate the word recycle. That's another one. Because I remember when recycling was, the milkman left 2 bottles on your front door, and you put the empties out when you finished with them, and he took them back and had them cleaned, washed, sterilized, and filled, and brought them back the next day. That, to me, is real recycling. So this issue of reprocessing, I think, is one that is totally being ignored. And so in your program, do you get into the differences between real recycling, where you can take something and use it again, as opposed to, well, we'll massage it, tear it up, beat it up?
Well, I think there's a misnomer with recycling anyway, so that's definitely reusing. So you actually brought up a whole bunch of questions there, a bunch of points. So our recycling, just in a quick
This was a tame one, by the way. I can get really wound up.
Recycling to, it's really gone to pot. We are, within our area, all of our recycling, all of our waste is burned for energy, which is good. Yeah. But a lot of our recycling is being burned along with it because we're used to sending it to China and we're no longer. To your point about you can get your single-use bags, your newspaper in here and there, and yeah, we have built an economy and a society around single-use and the convenience of it. And I am a proponent of none of that. We should try to go for multi-use everything. No, it's probably not very. When you think of the brass tacks of it, it's probably not feasible for everything. But there's also, compostability has done its due diligence. This is a compostable bag, and essentially it has an ASTM rating. These will compost in a compost facility, and more places are composting. And so, compostability, I think, has some challenges as well, because you have the products to. You have the you need a lot of corn to make it. It's made out of most of it's made out of corn, and also actually a lot of these bags do not decompose in marine environments, and we actually just got a new shipment of these new bags from this company out in Chicago, and we just ran a test in 7 weeks. Normally, they just never decompose, just like a plastic bag, and they just keep breaking down. We just ran a test 7 weeks, and this new product, these compostable plastic bags, broke down in the marine environment. And so,
what does it break down into?
Well, since it's made from corn, it's not corn chunks stuck together with polymers. No, it's not biodegradable. It's actually compostable. ASTM D6400.
What's the difference between compostable and
biodegradable?
Well,
biodegradable, I think, is a misnomer now, because I think the old term biodegradable used to be used for something that is now compostable. It's something essentially anything is biodegradable. It all came from the earth, and going back to the earth, it's going to eventually biodegrade. It's eventually going to degrade into smaller and smaller and just degrade. These are meant to be made from all natural products and go right back into all natural products. So like that bag that we watched decompose over 7 weeks, it just turned out to be like a thick, soupy grossness, but just to decompose right in water, which is wonderful. And I think we need to go more towards compostability, less towards single-use everything. And then, and you said car parts, definitely, but that's not single use. I mean, we need a lot of this stuff, but.
Do you remember the movie The Graduate?
Yeah.
And when the famous line to Dustin Hoffman was, plastics.
Yeah.
Plastics. If I had to give advice to the industrial world out there, I would say compostable products that are going to substitute for plastics, because if we showed you, here's a plastic straw, here's a compostable straw, you would not be able to tell the difference. Mm-hmm. And so what's happened is, in my discussions, in our discussions with Dunkin' Donuts and other people who are trying to find substitutes, Dunkin' Donuts has this entire department who's working on this.
Yeah.
Starbucks is banning all plastic straws starting in 2020, next year.
Yeah.
The Chicago White Sox, in conjunction with the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, which is their aquarium, has got a program called Shed the Straw. And so in White Sox ballpark, there are no straws. Yeah. They're the first athletic team in the United States to not have straws, to ban straws that are plastic. So what I'm saying is there's really going to be a conversion. The thing around your newspaper, that can be made out of stuff that's in 7 weeks is going to be dirt. So, I mean, that's really where it's going. And it's an incredible business opportunity, is what I'm saying, for the right companies to go. And they're getting on the bandwagon, they're figuring it out, and they're going there.
Yeah, I've seen enough articles written about different biological means to break down. Because you start off with oil is nothing more than a product of algae, leaves, organic material that has been processed in the earth under temperature and pressure and turned into this black goo. And it used to be fairly good-sized polymers, and it's been broken down into relatively simple monomers. And then you go into the plastics industry, and you put it back together again, and you make plastic out of them. And I've got a problem with using edible stuff to make plastic, because there ought to be another way to do it, because I remember when they first started doing with the ethanol made out of corn, the price of tortillas went out of sight. It has repercussions when you get into some of these things. And I think that's one of the issues that too few people recognize, that when you poke at it over here, something pops up over there.
Certainly.
It's like a big balloon,
It is. And there's the opportunity, too.
Yeah.
I mean, to solve these problems and to come up with a solution that actually works and can you don't have the effect of popping up all over the place.
Turns into a game of whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, that's what I was searching for.
Yeah.
Whack-a-mole.
And you think about this area with cell signaling in New England Biolabs, at least 2 companies locally around here. There ought to be some opportunities, like you say, to spin off something that gets into something that's more practical than taking the corn and making something other than tortillas,
Well, this is a huge movement. This is nationwide, it's worldwide, and it's coming at us. And the question is, do we want to lead or do we want to follow? So if you project 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, it's all going to be run differently than today, because the young people are being educated. So let's lead, as opposed to follow. That's my
The other half
feeling.
of the problem is it's like global warming. They get all nervous and jerky about CO2, and you find out that most of these countries that get into that find out that, when the wind don't blow and the sun don't shine, we got to crank up the oil-fired, gas-fired, coal-fired boiler and make electricity. And the problem comes down to the places that are making more CO2 than we are not involved in this game. And similarly with the biodegradables, I saw an article recently that something between 88 and 95% of the plastic comes flushing down 7 rivers in the world, or nine rivers. 7 are in Asia and 2 are in Africa. And there is the magnitude of the problem. So, we can do a lot of good stuff here, but how do we convince them to get into the game?
Well, that's what worldwide agreements are about. That's what the Paris Climate Accord is about. in part. This is, you know, people coming together. This is about the UN. It's about countries working together to get this going. But you know, you've got to do your part. It's going to come from the bottom up in large part, and that the people are going to have to insist upon this, so that the elected officials around the world are going to have to get with the program and really deal with the electorate.
I think it's more of an educational program that says, okay, you got this plastic bag. You don't throw it in the trash. You do put it into some sort of system where it will get composted, reprocessed, whatever. Thin film plastic bags are polyethylene, one of the simplest plastics to break down. It's a thermoplastic. You just heat it and melt it. And I think the problem we've discussed before on the why is, yeah, it's a disaster when it goes into one of these recycling plants, because they got the big scoops that have the knives on them that cut everything down and break it down, and it gums up the works. Well, it doesn't belong there. That's the problem. It shouldn't be there. And I'll get on my rant about not having the single stream recycling, because once you mix these things together, you're destroying information that is extremely valuable, and it's very difficult to unmix these things. Right. I've seen some of the pictures where people standing over this conveyor line picking stuff off. That's got to be a miserable job.
Oh, you think?
I can imagine.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I think to your point about education, I think education is key, and that's why we are, you know, SeaSide Sustainability has two programs that we have created. One of the programs is called Green Scholars. It's in lots of schools. We've trained almost 500 people around the country to do it. Actually, Ipswich High School just became one of the greenest schools in the country with the Green Ribbon Award because of this program. So it's won national attention, and essentially what it is, it's giving students, middle school and high school students, a project-based learning opportunity to run a project in their school or in their community that's based around sustainability. So the hope is, or their goal is in 2020 to get that onto a web-based platform where it's a training, video-based training module. So that's one of the education things we're doing, which is awesome.
And with those words of wisdom, we've run out of our 30 minutes. And I hope you've had as much fun as I have. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for watching us. And we'll probably have to come back and refinish this one, because this goes on and on. And hope to see you next time.
Great. Thank you, George.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.